Hello everyone, my name is Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, and welcome to my channel. Today we are reviewing Married at First Sight, Season 17, Episode 2. If you are new to this channel, I am, of course, a licensed professional counselor and also an internal family systems therapist, meaning I utilize this model to kind of help us to get a little bit curious, to not jump so quickly to our assumptions or judgments or even criticism, but to get a little curious about what's happening internally for these couples so that one, we can learn a little bit about them and potentially about ourselves. If you are returning, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's get started. First, we're going to discuss Michael and his mystery bride. Now, we know that after watching, of course, and unfortunately, that once the mystery bride, she walked down the aisle, she decided that marrying a stranger was not for her. And which was so heartbreaking for Michael, as you can tell that he was very, very into this process and seemed to be very committed to it as well. We learned in the after party that he bought her a tennis bracelet. He also bought her some like creative jewelry. There was like a ruby and with some like gold that was almost like the symbol of like drippings. So he's very creative. He talked about that as well in his intro, about being a very creative individual and expressing his creativity through his garb, and how he sometimes that has been even or potentially a part of him feels like that has been something that's deterred people away from him and why he hasn't really met the person that he's supposed to be with. Well, I will say this. I know that probably what people will say out of anger, which rightfully so, I even have space for that, where a part of them is saying, okay, she knew what she was getting herself into. She knew that she signed up for this. She went through the whole process. And then now all of a sudden, when she gets to the altar, how dare she, right, make this big decision that could harm him. And I understand that because they have that feeling of like, that's not right. That's not fair to Michael. And it's not. What they're saying is absolutely true. And also, what I do know to be true as well, that sometimes we have parts of us that believe like, oh, we can do this. And they may take over. They may try to be in the driver's seat of the decision, while the parts of us that feel like, oh, we can't do it, we like push them in the back, or we put them in the trunk of the car and don't really listen to them because we really want to do this, right? We really want to do this thing. And then once we're in the middle of it, once we're in the heat of it, oh no, I can't do this. And we freeze, and she even graciously said like, oh, you're such a nice guy too. Like as he was being gracious to her of saying, okay, well, I know this is a lot, right? And you're in this space and you're like, man, I can't do this. And he's like, I have compassion for you. He was even showing her compassion in that moment. It does say a lot about him. It truly does. And she appreciated that. And at the same time, she honored what she felt in that moment and decided not to follow through with the process of marrying a stranger. What I will say is I appreciate the fact that she honored that voice before she chose to, right, walk through this process with him. He's fully committed into it, and then she's not showing up, right, as a partner and doing damage even more further, right? Not saying that she didn't hurt him, because obviously we saw that, right? So I will say what we saw, or evidence of the hurt that we saw on Michael, there was definitely like this teetering that we saw, right? A part of him was saying, oh yeah, this no way shapes, how I'm going to move forward in other relationships. And then we also heard a part of him saying, I don't know, maybe she's just not out there. And so there was a part of him that was losing hope, and it's protecting, right? Protecting the part of him that wants this, really wants this relationship. The hurt that maybe he's even experienced in the past of just wanting to be with someone, wanting to be connected with someone, but for whatever reason, things have not panned out. I do see that he really put forth, right? He had this huge collective and huge supportive circle around him of friends, which was beautiful to see. I'm glad that he had that in the moment. And also they just like wrapped around him, allowed him to feel, right? So even in those moments when he had, after the wedding didn't happen, and he's talking to his groomsmen, and he's like, I'm glad you appreciate it and felt like I handled that situation appropriately, and he really experienced like a wave of emotion. His friends didn't like push his emotions to the side or tell him like, hey, don't feel that way, like don't waste your tears over this woman who hurt you this way, or don't allow yourself to go there because she didn't do right by you. Like, right, there wasn't that moment. Like, there was embracing, like, it's okay, you're going to get through this. This will be like, there were words of encouragement, but also space for him to be human, to be sad about this, to be disappointed about this. And he spoke to it. There were some parts of him that were embarrassed around this. So I'm just grateful that he had that space to be human, to be a man, right? Experiencing waves of emotion that are big, and being supported by other men in that moment. That was like beautiful to see. And I'm hoping that that will continue to be, right, the norm, that men will have spaces where they can cry tears, where they can show emotion and then also be embraced by one another. Really beautiful to see. And my hope for the mystery bride is that she does some internal exploration, right? Really seeing what she wants and really getting to know all the parts of her, because I'm hearing that this huge gap between maybe what she wants for herself and the parts of her that are maybe really scared of what she wants. And to really sit with that, get curious about that, try to understand herself, get some clarity, have some compassion for it, all those things, so that she'll be able to really move through the rest of her life, or the next chapters of her life, with more clarity and understanding of herself. Because that would be a beautiful gift for her to get out of this, right? And I'm hoping that she's able to hold herself accountable with grace, right? Because that's what we all need. We all make mistakes. Sometimes we are the villain in the story. Sometimes we are, the villain in someone's story. And so we need to, when that happens, be able to give ourselves accountability and grace at the same time, instead of what we tend to do is shame ourselves or blame ourselves, and say we are bad versus we did something bad or we harmed someone, and taking that in, like, yes, we did do that, and we do need to own up for how what we did hurt someone. I also thought it was wonderful that she did give him back the jewelry that he bought for her, as she didn't honor, right? She didn't honor the commitment, honor the process. And Mike was very happy to take his sword and his crown, because he said, I'm not giving it back, as he was definitely a fan, as he wore it. He wore it on that day to really honor her and honor that special gift that she had given him. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out the way he wanted. But I do sincerely hope the best for them. I do see that Michael probably definitely will continue to move forward, and hopefully that he will find places to really heal around this. Sometimes when something like this happens, that's very tender, sometimes we put wall up, like, hey, everything's fine. I mean, I'm good. Like, I'm good. And instead of really sitting with what's really happening, right, internally for us. So hoping that he'll do that, hoping that she, again, will lean in, get curious about what's happening internally for her, and get some clarity around what she would like to do and what's really going to work best for her. Next, we have Emily and Brennan. Now, every year, the experts pick someone who has never been in a relationship before. Either someone who's never been in a relationship before, or someone who's never experienced love before. And it becomes a whole thing for the next 8 weeks of their lives. It's really like the next, 4 months of our lives, because somehow they stretch out these 8 weeks to be so much longer than they really are in real time, right? And I'm hoping that this is not what's going to happen for this couple. We do see, though, that it is a concern, right? Like, it's a concern for her, and it's a concern for him, too, as they're meeting. But she has never been in a relationship. He seems to be very forever focused. We note that in his vows to her, that he is really focused on making relationships work, making something last forever and wanting that to happen. Now, approaching the wedding day or on the wedding day, we see that Emily is very nervous. Like her body is hot, right? And so she said she's feeling fine, but she's sweating, right? And she's had to take a moment because now her nerves are starting to really, starting to get worked up. And that's, again, oftentimes what happens is, right, maybe what we're knowing and intellectually wanting to feel, so I'm fine. But then our body is sending signals to us that we're not okay. And it's important for us to notice it, right? Because what she's doing is nerve-wracking, right? She's marrying a stranger on national television, right? So that's something that would cause someone to get nervous. So the fact that a part of her is saying, I'm not nervous, I'm okay, like, that's something to sit with. Like, of course you're nervous. Why wouldn't you be nervous? And it's okay to be nervous and acknowledge that. And so sometimes when that's happening, when you get that wave, right, of heat, or you're sweating and your heart's beating fast, acknowledge it. Like, yeah, this is scary, right? Because sometimes that's all anxiety is trying to communicate to us. Like, ooh, this is scary. And they want to know that we know it's scary. Like, we get it. So if we say, oh, we're fine, then it's like it even wants to ramp up even more. Like, she doesn't get it. She doesn't get that this is scary. So I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. This is scary. So let your body know, like, you get this. So once they see each other, we see some smiles, right? And so I'm going to make an assumption, even though a part of me is like, oh, remember you did that last year with Eris when he clapped, right? When he saw his wife, that we thought he was attracted, but he wasn't. So we're going to make a deductive reasoning for, as of now, that they're both attracted to each other. But we shall see as the truth unfolds if they truly are. But we're noticing that Emily does have a part of her that just says things, right? She says things. Because I don't know if everyone or even Brennan will want to know on the day they're getting married that she's never been in a relationship before. See, I don't know if that's something he would want to know, but she did state it, and it was like, oh, even if it's awkward, right? So there was like, his eyes get a little big, right? In that moment, maybe something to share after they get married or as they're getting to know each other. But she shared it on the day and in front of his family. So they're hearing this too, as they're trying to maybe even work with their nerves because their loved one is getting married to a stranger, right? But Brennan, again, is very future focused, willing to commit, willing to stand the test of time, right, with his significant other. Now, we did learn on the after party too that Emily wanted to give Brennan a gift that would be helpful for them building their lives together, and so she bought him a knife set. And she says, now reflecting, she's like, oh, maybe I should have got him something else, because that, would have been a little creepy to give your husband to be, a knife set, and you never met your wife. You don't know, where she's coming from with that angle. But it seemed like in the clip, the little small clip they showed, that he did appreciate it. Like, oh, sweet knives, but he wasn't scared about like, oh, what is she trying to say to me? But we did see also that both of them are pretty talkative. That wasn't really showing in their footage that they had after the wedding. It seemed to be a little tentative, and I don't know if that's to like a part of them is trying to not overtalk one another, or they don't know what to say. They're just meeting, right? But I did notice some tentative energy around just communicating with each other at the beginning. It's neither good nor bad, just noticing it, right? And so it's kind of natural that that's happening because they don't know each other, and it's like, we've never been married to a stranger. We don't know what we're supposed to say or to each other afterwards. They both wanted to have the same dog, so there's a part of them that's making an assumption like, hey, we're both talkative, we both like the same dog, so this is gonna work, right? Which we see other couples do in the past, like, oh, we both have cats, it's gonna work. And that's not the case. Usually we need so much more than that to make a marriage work. And at the same time, these are good things to have and notice, right? So, okay, we're not going to fight about you want a big dog, I want a small dog, right? These are things that are little fruits, right, on this tree to let us know, okay, Potentially. But is this for sure? Absolutely not. We don't know for sure. We did hear from Emily that she's a partier and she wanted to know from Brennan if he was. And so he talked about how his dad doesn't drink water, he only drinks vodka because that's what he uses to stay hydrated. He said he's 100% Russian. And so that makes me think potentially that he's trying to align with her. Like, he's like, hey, you're a partier. Well, my dad drinks, he drinks vodka. He doesn't drink water. He's not really talking about him, like how he thinks about that. Because who knows? When you're first meeting people, you're not always completely open about your likes and dislikes. One, because you're trying to be likable. You have parts of you that want people to like you, parts of you that don't want people to see you as rude and want want to be seen as open and friendly. And so because of that, sometimes we're not always upfront and honest. So say I'm writing my own story. We don't know much about any of these couples, but we're just going on a journey here, right? So say that Brennan is someone who doesn't really like partying, and Emily's coming out saying like, hey, I'm a partier. Are you a partier? He's like, well, my dad is, he drinks a lot of, but he's not saying like, well, I don't party that much. And, I'm not really looking for that. Like I want to be at home and I want to spend time with you, like, or we can do activities together, but not party. Like I'm kind of past that phase. Who knows, right? But they're still getting to know each other, but you can see that there's like not a lot of information that they're sharing with each other as of yet in the footage that we see, right, with one another. So we shall see. We know that there is concern. He hasn't dug deep around the fact that she has been in a relationship, but he did note it. Like that was one of the first things he noted to her, acknowledged like, oh, haven't been in a relationship. She's like, no, right? So he didn't badger about it. He didn't dig and make it a huge thing, but it's a note. And so it seems like potentially he may be a person that has a part of him that maybe just like takes information, puts it in a file cabinet, like, oh, okay, right? And maybe not explore it and talk about it up front, right? And everybody has their own different way of how they navigate relationships. This is the first meeting, right? So I don't want to put a lot on the first meeting because, again, we're still just meeting these couples. To see what's happening here, there's not really a lot of disclosure between these two yet. Not really. There's not a lot of openness with these two. And so that could also be potentially an issue. We don't know, right? But potentially, just in this one meeting, if they are slow to disclose information, and this continues to be an issue in their relationship, then because they're getting married, first day, not knowing each other, you would want some more openness. Like, hey, yeah, this is me. This is who I am. That's not happening here. So, as I always say, we shall see. Next, we have Lauren and Orion. Now, we learned that Lauren is a very grounded and spiritual person. She identifies as queer, and she's had same gender, same sex relationships, and also that Orion, due to his culture, because traditional Navajo culture has 4 genders, right? And so they do embrace both the feminine and masculine energy. And he himself, he said he tapped into that feminine energy and had a same-sex relationship, but also noticed that that wasn't something that really meshed with him per se. And so he's looking to have a heterosexual relationship, right? And so I think too that them having and finding this like commonality, speaking to the experts, right, having this understanding of both of them, like being open to this, I feel is a really great start for potentially their relationship. There was a part of me that was a little concerned, just like looks only, but as I really got to know and hear Lauren and Orion's story and what things that are really important to them, both of them really love their culture and have a deep connection with their culture and understanding their culture and their ancestors and all of this. I was like, okay, there may be some good stuff here. Like there may be some really great stuff here. And to them just being really open. Both of them really seem to be very centered people. And coming from a place that's just very grounded. Lawrence, like, I know who I am. I know I'm already a wife. Right? I know who I am. Orion's like, I've been wanting this since I was 13 years old. My grandparents, they were a long lasting relationship, really inspired me, at 13. And so I've been wanting this. Right. And so there are some, like, oh, maybe potentially like his 13-year-old who has like this idea of what he saw as a 13-year-old from his 13-year-old view of his grandparents' relationship may feel like, hey, that's what this is supposed to be, which, is completely different than what we know about real relationships as an adult, right? So that may be impacting their relationship or showing up some way in their relationship. And at the same time, though, both of them are coming with this great longing for a long lasting commitment and taking into and bringing all of themselves into it, and their traditions, their culture, their ancestors, like all of that, that really, there's like a part of me that has a lot of hope for these two, knowing that. I really enjoyed the gifts that they gave each other. They seem really, really thoughtful. Lauren gave Orion this aged rum that she bottled when she was in Puerto Rico and gave to him. He gave her turquoise, which was like a way that he connects with his ancestors, so that when she wears that, they will be able to learn and connect with her, right? And she'll have this relationship with them. I thought that was like so beautiful and so meaningful. And so I was like, okay, this is good. Like, there's a part of me that's like, oh, we're getting excited, which often happens in Married at First Sight. And there's also a part of me that's like, slow your roll, Alicia. You know how Married at First Sight does you, right? Like, they play games with us. But so far, so good. I was concerned about looks, right? I was just concerned about how that would go, but both of them look so nice. Orion had his hair wrapped, which is another layer of his culture of having, right, this clear channel that, the ancestors are present with him and giving that clarity. So he's coming in full self, like he's coming his truest form of self, without, right, the fears, and really bringing just all of him as he's meeting his wife. And she looks beautiful in her dress. She's also has a picture, right, of her mother, and she's even insightful enough to know, like, ooh, I need the part of my mom who is like the fun loving mom, right? I need that part of her today. Like, she's even intuitive enough to understand and aware of herself to know like which part of her mom she needs today. So that lets me know that she's got some tools already in her tool belt. And same for Orion, like they have some tools to already be able to navigate this experience. That's helpful versus someone who's maybe potentially never been in a relationship before, so doesn't know themselves enough to know what they need in a relationship or who they are, all of that stuff. Like, not having that kind of puts people, not saying that it's impossible, that they're never going to be able to be successful in a situation like this, but it just makes it more challenging because they don't have that, right? So they're seeing each other. We're hearing like, oh, you're beautiful. She loved his earrings. So like there's a connection there. Their energies are vibing very well. They're loving what they're hearing in the vows or in the parents and family's explanation, right, of each other. It's really beautiful to have that, right? And there's this like little banter and playful energy that's happening at the altar. Like, oh, that's really beautiful. One of the things too that Lauren placed in her vows or stated in her vows was like, I want to meet you with like curiosity versus criticism and conflict. And I was just like, okay, like this is good stuff. Like the therapist in me is excited to hear these things in the vows. I know in the moment sometimes, right? It's hard. It's hard to not criticize, or it's hard to not bring all of you, because in the moment you may be you're activated, you're triggered, you're coming from a place of emotion and may not have what you want to bring. So I get that. And at the same time, just the fact that she's aware of like, oh, this is where she wants what she wants. Like on when she was talking to her bridesmaids before walking down the aisle, saying like, I want my husband to be able to communicate, because I'm not a mind reader. I want to know, right? And there are sometimes when there is the expectation, what we've seen in past seasons, where people want, like, I want you to know what I need without me saying it. Well, whew, if that were possible, man, that would have maybe saved a lot of past marriages before Married at First Sight, and even probably outside of Married at First Sight. But we're not mind readers. We need for you to speak for what's bothering you, what you need, if your needs are getting met, all of that. So this is good stuff. This is good stuff. That beautiful kiss when he asked, which I thought was very respectful. Of course, so we know there's a part of him that is very respectful of her and her body. And at the same time, when she said yes, I mean, that kiss was intentional, okay? And she felt that intention after the end. She was like, whoo, okay. They also talked about their commonalities. They have the same sign, and they both really are at least really invested into astrology. And so these are good things. I'm really excited to see the commonalities that are happening this season, because in past seasons, the experts tend to like find the opposites, hoping that, they balance each other. And we've noticed that usually the opposites really repel them, because again, they're meeting at the altar. I think if they were potentially knowing each other, then like, oh, these opposites really balance us and we appreciate them. But because they're meeting this way, it's like it sometimes makes them dig in further into their heels. We're like, oh, you're loud, well, I'm quiet. And then like that one thing just pulls them further back. But it's like, oh, the more commonalities they're having, you're seeing like, oh, we like the same dog, like we're both Sagittarius, so it's like they're pulling into each other. And that's beautiful to witness, because that helps to calm them down, to make them more open for what potentially could be a beautiful marriage. We don't know, we're not getting our hopes up, and at the same time, this is nice to see. It's really nice to see. Orion also spoke about in his vows that he wants someone who can be a leader, can be independent, boisterous. And we know that Lauren speaks her mind, right? She's very open and she's direct. So like this is promising, right? And we're hoping that the proof is in the pudding, like in real time, that these things are showing up. Because if they are, and the chemistry continues to build, this can be great. This can be really great. So they're off to a good foot. And as you know, I always say, we shall see. Next, we have Emma and Austin. And the both of them, man, talk about commonalities and similarities there. They're both very adventurous, tend to be a little bit like on the goofy, silly side, outgoing, and are both looking for that in a mate, like matching that energy. And the experts definitely did that for them. He's a very outdoorsy type of person. She is like very artistic. She's a wedding photographer, and she has her own business. So she's very like a go-getter, right? And she also talked about her health challenges, and also that she's kind of holding it to her vest around that, because she's like, I don't want him to feel like, ooh, like he got burdened by like her health issues. And so she's being a little timid around that. She talked too about how her friends really helped her to really know her worth and not settle in past relationships. So she was really grateful to have them on her wedding day. She picked this like beautiful flowy dress, so she's not restricting her body because she just had surgery. Now I will say the fact that she went through this process while recovering from a surgery or having a surgery, going through that process, like whew, that's also saying a lot about her as well. Austin, he tends to be a little bit on the goofy, kind of silly side, leaning towards humor. And that's a beautiful thing. You need that. You need someone who you can laugh with, who you can have fun with. And a part of me is concerned, like, ooh, can he be serious when it's time to be serious? His friends talked about the fact that he can be a little indecisive, so he needs someone to help him make decisions. And so that's fine. We all have our areas of growth. I am concerned though, like in moments where maybe they need to have a tough conversation or intimate conversation, will he be able to do that? Like be open, be sincere, put the Mr. Funny, the funny part of him to the side, and truly have a serious conversation and connect with her in that way. So we'll see. Right, we'll see. Now, his friends did ask him, like, hey, like, if she's not outgoing, are you going to be able to commit to that? And he's like, man, I would really want that, but I'll try. He used a lot of try. Like, I'll try. And I'll say this. I feel like, while I think it's refreshing, the fact that he's not like, oh, I'm for sure committed. Because we've heard that, like, I'm going to give it 100%. I'm going to stand in there and I'm going to stay in there. And then something happens and that doesn't happen. Like, the person, quits in the middle of it. Or a part of them, gives up and they're trying, but not like really fully giving it their all. And so the fact that he's like being open to the fact, like, okay, I'll try, but that will be something that will be hard for me, is being honest, right? So I'm giving him definitely kudos for that. And at the same time, try is such a tricky word. We say we try, but what does that mean? Intentionally, you can try, but are you really putting forth the effort, like, to make the relationship work or give it your best? Because even his friend said, like, oh, I'll give it the college try. He was like, well, hopefully it's better than a college try, saying, like, college, I kind of phoned it in, right? So he's acknowledging his own flaws in a humorous way. And at the same time, a part of me is like, is he going to be fully committed and into this process? We shall see. Part of me has that concern. And at the same time, at their wedding, oh my goodness, their wedding day. So he is giving her a gift, right? And he gives her the very perfume that she wears every day, which is like a huge surprise, a huge, like, and also like, oh my goodness, the odds. Like, there's a part of her that feels like affirmed around that choice. And the after party, we find out that he was in the mall and the woman, right, just recommended this as the fragrance, right? And so it lets us know that that's what happened. It was like a serendipity moment. Sometimes, though, there are parts of us that can attach meaning to that, like, oh, that means that we're meant to be, right? So it feels like that's kind of the energy that they're giving in this moment. She gave him pictures, which of course is like our camera. So take pictures because that's like connected to her, right? Her and a part of her photographer side. Once they meet, oh my goodness, like the chemistry is just like, in the whole room, it's just like radiating. She's excited. She wants to hug the family. She has such a big energy, and he's like really connected to that, to the point where he's even getting tearful. He said, he's like, oh, it's crazy. I never cry, right? So she gives him tissues to pat his eyes. And so he's like, I never cry. And so that makes me say, I wonder how connected to his emotions he is, if humor is the way that he masks his emotions, right? So these are all questions I'm having. Don't know it to be true, but these are all questions I'm asking myself while watching this, right? And getting to know them. Both of them play the same game console. I think it's N64. So they're like really excited about that and connecting there. They both run late. So there was like a lot of common things that they have to work with. Again, I'm really appreciating that. That the experts are doing that, so we know for sure they will not be on time for filming this whole season because they'll be with each other late. But maybe that's a good thing for them to connect. Like, that's the goal, for them to connect with each other, and it really feels like that's what's happening at this altar, for sure, for them. My favorite line in her vows was that she said, I will never stop trying to understand you, even when I feel like I have you figured out. Oh my goodness. The couples therapist in me wanted to like hug her because oftentimes that's so much what causes conflict in relationships, and not just couples, but just relationships, period. When we're coming from a place of feeling like we know what the other person is saying or meaning when they're speaking, but we really don't know. Like, we're hearing the words, but we don't understand the meaning that's trying to be conveyed with those words, and really seeking to understand and know, really like intuitively, to connect, not to dismiss or to discount or to disprove, but just to hear each other. Oh my goodness, what would our relationships be like if we came with that energy of like, hey, I really want to understand you, even when I feel like I've gotten you figured out. Oh my goodness. Whew, amazing. So their connection, it just continues to build with each other. We find out that she finds him attractive. She had a little code that she had with her friends, and we saw that that was definitely true. So that's beautiful for them to continue to have this connection and banter with each other, and a nice kiss as well, uh, on their wedding day, and even after their wedding day, as they continue to communicate and connect with each other. So I'm really excited about this couple, and at the same time, right, I have the part of me that's like, take a deep breath, Alicia. You know. So I got my parts as I'm watching too. And you tell me where your parts are around these two couples. Because these two, I mean, they're pretty promising. And from my world, let me know. Right. And I'm speaking to Lauren and Orion and Emma and Austin. And last but not least, we have Claire and Cameron. And Cameron, he is such an adventurous soul. He moved from New Zealand 10 years ago to Denver by himself. Oh my goodness, what a risk taker! What a part of him that's just like so, like just throw everything to the wind and just completely relocate, right? With no family, and he's even going through this process without family. He has some friends there, but his family is still in New Zealand. And he is really excited to go on another adventure. And Claire, she's a person who has really been focused on herself. She's a therapist, and she's just been focusing on her goals and really paving way for herself and feeling more comfortable in her skin. And so now she's ready to move into a realm of being in a relationship and connecting with someone. Now, we did notice at the dress fitting and even and the wedding day that Claire does have some protective family, right? She says, hey, I know sometimes you can give people a hard time. I really don't want you to do that. I really want you to reserve your opinions, right, your reservations, put them to the side, and really be open to this person. And so that's giving me a little pause, just because, whew, I'm wondering how her family is going to respond to Cameron, and if they're going to be open to him, right? If they're going to be open to this process, that they're going to be open to what Claire wants to do for her, or if they're going to maybe try to influence this and impact the relationship in a way that isn't helpful for Claire to know what's right for her. We also know that Claire's brother passed away, and that's one of the things that actually inspired her to be a therapist, which makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but it is a truth that becoming a therapist is a trauma response. And so oftentimes when we are going through things that are painful, and maybe we didn't have someone to support us, sometimes they could be like, ooh, I want to be the thing that people go to, or be the person that people go to when they're in pain, because I didn't have that, right? And which is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful call, right, at times, but at the same time, we too need to do our work. And I'm speaking to, we as therapists need to do our work to make sure that we can be present for our clients and not taking care of them in a place that we would want to have been taken care of when we were needing support and healing and needing someone to be present for us, right? And so, hoping she's done that work too, and so that she can show up in a way for herself in this marriage, and also for Cameron, coming from a space that's not like coming from like a caretaker energy, or trying to even be a therapist for him, but really just coming as a human and connecting with him in that way, as a wife is for a husband. Cameron does tend to have a silly side. We noticed that when he gave her the stuffed animal, and everybody was like, very put off by that. And that may just be this energy he has. It's like a silly kind of energy, goofy energy. It seems like a part of Claire was hoping for something more romantic, something more thoughtful. But that's not what Cameron had that day. And so I'm hoping she can embrace Cameron too. Embrace him just as her family, she's asking her family to, because it's one gift. It's one gift. We don't know, right? We don't know all of Cameron yet, as the wedding still hasn't, right, taken place. But you can tell she's starting to get a little nervous about it because of the gift he chose. So we shall see how things start off in a few days, next coming episode with this couple. Please let me know what your Your parts are letting you know about these couples, right? A part of you may be feeling like, hey, this stuffed animal is showing like he's not going to take this marriage seriously, or he didn't give this much thought, right? Or a part of you might be saying, oh, Emily has never been in a relationship before, so she's not going to be able to get through this, right? We don't know. Or a part of you may be saying that Austin, he's too much of a joker. He's not going to be able to be really serious and connect and make the emotional connection he needs to make a lasting relationship work. Let me know. Let me know what your parts are saying, even if they're saying conflicting things about the couples, because we want to hear them. If you are still with us, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, be cool, be calm, be centered. Peace.